Hello and welcome to Circlejuking in under 10 minutes. Circlejuking is a hunter fighting strategy which is very much the antithesis to the standard strategies of roaching, skirting, and pillar humping. A quick warning, this strategy works about exactly as great as your team is. If you have a crap team, you're going to have a crap experience. But if you have a good team who's organized and communicating, you'll do pretty amazing. It relies on everyone doing their part and making sure they have minimal mistakes. It takes quite a bit of practice to implement, but it's very effective even against high-skill monsters. Before you start implementing it though, there are two key elements. The first is the dome location. When you're fighting, you need large, open, flat areas. Cliffs, ledges, pillars, they all make executing the circle juke much harder. A perfect example of the ideal dome is directly in front of the relay on weather control. The large open area gives you all the space you need to maneuver and to work effectively. The second is hunter picks. When you're playing with the circle juke, the hunter picks are very important because they can either make or break your attempts. To start, support. Support is one of the most important players in this comp, and it has to be your absolute best player on the team. Your support is basically the bait, and for this you needed a very defensive support so that you can force the monster to prioritize him or her. Sunny and Standard Hank are the best choices, and you want them running evasion perks so they can mitigate damage. I've been having great success with Thruster, Battery Thruster, which gives you a total of 14% dodge bonus range, as well as additional regeneration so you can dodge more often. Jetpack efficiency isn't ideal because your priority is getting out of attacks rather than sitting in the air. And while run speed can work, thrusters and fuel regen have been my best successes. Your trapper is basically who buys the support a second or two so that he can regenerate that fuel and the medic can regenerate his health. Electro Griffin, in my opinion, is the best choice for this strategy. The soft CC of his slow and the hard CC from his harpoon is perfect, and the positioning involved in this strategy means the 25 meter range is never a concern. I put Standard Griffin and Maggie right after the Electro Griffin because their hard CC is very important. Jack is close behind, but he alters the positioning involved, so that's something you have to take into account. The rest I consider fairly worthless, as their stasis, which is best against monsters who are climbing, is not so effective when you're fighting on flat ground. Whoever you pick, your trapper needs to be very aware of cooldowns and traversal timings on the monster. If he follows these timings, he's able to interrupt them and ensure that you get those extra seconds and prevent all the damage possible. For perks, I usually go swap, reload, reload, or swap, reload, poison, depending on how I feel confident with my team. If they are very effective at dodging abilities, I'll go poison because it allows me to get damage even while I'm prioritizing blocking the monster. Your medic needs to be someone who can sustain the support safely. There's no real standout medics for this, they're all pretty equal. Val is my personal preference, but they all do work. However, Quantum Kyra and Lazarus are pretty bad for this strategy, due to the lack of sustain or the constant mobility involved in the dome fights. For perks, I usually pick something with class regen, because it allows me to both heal my allies by having my cooldown slightly more often, as well as protect myself if the monster decides to focus me instead of the support. In general though, whatever you like best on your medic of choice is probably the best bet. There's nothing special that comes through this strategy for medic perks. Assault is also fairly generic. Hyde and Parnell are best in my opinion. The Markovs are a little bit weaker. This is because your positioning will place you away from locations that you'll want to be placing the mines. It takes away a portion of your kit, or you have to sacrifice your positioning in order to get those up. The rest I would avoid. When playing Assault in this strategy, you absolutely have to clear out the Banshees, block rocks, absorb the tongue grab, and abducts. Fortunately, this strategy has you standing in places where it gets easy. The whole point is to make sure that movement between yourself and the monster becomes predictable because you are guiding the fight. That allows the Assault to do his job very easily because he's always standing in the place he needs to be. Now that we've gone about how to start the strategy, let's talk about how to actually execute it. The graphic on screen shows the rough positioning that you will want to hold. If you notice, the support is going in a circular pattern around the outside of the flat area you have claimed. The Assault is moving in parallel on the inside of the circle, and the trapper is behind the monster, making sure that the monster's attempt to push through is extremely difficult. Of course, if you are running Maggie or if you are running Jack, you'll have to move up further, roughly to where, maybe between where the assault and the medic is. And that will allow you to use your abilities in order to prepare for the monster to be coming towards you as opposed to sitting behind. And so this is how it works. The support dodges large abilities, so avoiding lightning strikes, dodging vortexes, avoiding leap smashes, all those things, blocking out the heavy damage while simply tanking the melees. The trapper does his best in order to hold the monster so that the medic can heal up those abilities that aren't dodged or the melees that are tanked. And the assault is doing his best because he's right there to block the damage that he can while dishing out his own. And it's simple as that. Go in a circle. When you hit the end, turn, keep going. You don't want to do full 180s. Those can be a bit dangerous because that doesn't give your team time to prepare. If you're playing the support and you happen to completely turn around and dodge back where you were, this means the monster is now on one side and your team is no longer able to protect you. And so that's why you want to continue moving in a circle. It's slow, it's methodical, it's predictable, and while the monster can do his best, you've prepared for that. You have your fuel ready, you're dodging only when you need to, and the monster slowly goes down. This isn't some crazy strategy where you burst through the monster extremely fast, although that can be fun. This is one that takes careful execution with practice and time and patience. If you do it right, there's almost nothing that can break it. So not every dome you get is perfect, and this happens often. You get bad domes, you get bad evolves, things happen where it's not perfect. And playing around that is very important. Using your environment, even if it's not 100% what you would like, is very useful. In these two fights, I showed it from the trapper and the support's perspective, and I'm able to keep us alive to my best ability. In this case, we have this very narrow corridor that we fight around. Using this and rotating carefully works very effectively. Note their positioning. The medic up on that pillar, not necessarily in that far distance, but still following that rough example, even though we don't have the wide open area. We just play around what we have, and it's able to work. In this dome, from the trapper's perspective, it's basically me standing in the opposite position. Instead of being the primary focus, I'm what's stopping him from getting there. And I rotate in the same pattern, just a little bit later. Fortunately, because I do mess up on my mechanics, I cause it to fail. And that's a good example of where every person has to be doing their full part. Here, I messed up, and so I actually got our support down. It does pay off, however, because this monster does overcommit to finish. But every little mistake can cause a failure. A single mistake, such as a missed harpoon, can lose the entire strategy. And that's why it's such a challenging thing to execute.
Try to block it.
Thank you for joining me in this guide to the high-risk, high-reward strategy of Circlejuking. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just drop them below, and I'll do my best to answer.